Hi, my name's Cleon Starr, and this is my project presentation on the Kaurareg, an Indigenous Australian Torres Strait Island people. And try saying that 5 times, that's a tongue twister. This is a photo of the Kaurareg in the 1920s, in their traditional garb. The Kaurareg people were mighty fishermen. They knew that, where the currents, how deep to go fishing, but they would only fish for what they needed. One of their sayings was, a good fisherman is one who is hungry. And so they knew they never took more than they needed when they were fishing. They were also in charge of impressive sailing outrigger canoe technology, which helped them fish better, faster. And they also traded throughout the straits with other Torres Island groups. The Kaurareg people regularly visited the Australian mainland, as the tribes on the mainland are with who the Kaurareg people held ceremonies. They had cross marriages with the different tribes on the mainland, and they also had strong trade alliances with many of the mainland tribes, which is very important to them to keep those alliances strong and healthy for them. In 1788, the first fleet of British arrived on the Botany Bay, south of what is now the city of Sydney. And from that time and for the next 150 years, the European settlers and the country's indigenous populations had series of bloody confrontations known as the Australia's Frontier Wars. These wars were where massacres were committed, and it wasn't good for the indigenous population there. In some cases, with the Europeans committing massacres on the indigenous populations, leaving some tribes wiped out there. At one time, there were only 80 Kaurareg left because of 1869, a schooner was attacked and all the crew members were killed, and the blame was on the Kaurareg people. After that, the Kaurareg people held responsible and massacred for it. Though later it was discovered to be a different group responsible for the killing, as the Kaurareg, people knew before that they were friendly with the trading, and that's all it's not all, but they'd like a friendly trade, so they were known as friendly. It was not like them to do something like that. Just like other indigenous groups at the time of colonizations, they were displaced from the traditional lands. The Kaurareg, by some counts, were displaced 8 times, maybe even more. And just like all other colonizers of the New Worlds, they tried to assimilate the indigenous population when they couldn't massacre them and kill them all. That next best step was to assimilate them. Indigenous children were forced into residential schools, just like in Canada. Same thing went on over there. Same abuses in the residential schools. It was tearing families apart and causing trauma upon the indigenous peoples of Australia. Shortly after World War II, the Kaurareg people started to make their way back to their traditional lands, the islands. And with the passage of the Native Title Act in 1993 and the Native Title Tribunal in 1994, the Kaurareg people were granted partial and in their homeland, which was huge for them. And in 2001, a federal court ruled in favor of the Kaurareg and returned 7 islands to their control, which was very, like, everyone was so happy. And it just, I would think that would send, like, it'd be just like waves across the world and to other indigenous peoples and fighting for their land, and winning. And it's not over still. They still deserve more, and they're still owed more. Like, it's not equal there. There's still hardships for them, but they're starting to heal. In Australia, they have a National Sorry Day, where they recognize the mistreatment of the country's Indigenous, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Island peoples. Also remembering members of the stolen generations, the Indigenous children forcibly taken away from their families for the government's plans of assimilation. It's but you hear here in Canada, in the United States, wherever the Indigenous people were were invaded and forced into assimilation, and their land stolen and resources stolen. It's kind of sad. Like, this National Sorry Day has been happening for the past 20 years now. The Kaurareg people are slowly gaining respect and slowly healing from intergenerational traumas. As a proud people, they have come back from almost extinction to live back on their traditional lands, which is awesome. Like, that's just to think of, there were like less than 80 people left back in the early 1900s, and now they're still here, and they couldn't massacre all of them. They're still proud and still living. But like a lot of other Indigenous peoples around the world, they're still fighting for equality and their sovereign rights of their lands, their resources. They don't want anything that's not theirs, It's things were stolen from them. Here's a flag design of the Kaurareg People Nation. This is a nice little flag they have there. This is when I researched the Kaurareg, it was like they love the sea, they love the land. They're both land, sea, because they're so close to the mainland too. And they also intermarried with them, so they have both there. But it's with the colonization I've seen here and know of here, and like the same thing happened over there with them. Took all their resources, took their land, displaced them, moved them, forcibly removed them from their land. It's like, it was hard to see that, and to see they were down to like 80 people, and now they're back in their homelands. They still have it hard, like they still live a hard life, but they're still searching for equality. And it's a pattern I see all over the world with the Indigenous people. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope I informed you a little bit a little bit more than you didn't know. Thank you.